Welcome to Fort Worth 148's podcast, where we meet to discuss Masonic topics and strive to build value in the Brotherhood. The opinions and statements of the participants do not represent any positions or stance of any Grand Lodge or Lodge and are solely the viewpoints of the participants.
Welcome to the Fort Worth 148 podcast. My name is Billy Hamilton. I am the current Worshipful Master for Fort Worth 148 Lodge.
My name is Gabe Yagish, and I am the Senior Warden of Fort Worth 148.
My name is Ebbie Kirkendall, and I am the Junior Deacon for Fort Worth 148.
And we have two special guests with us tonight.
Craig Enderli, the Chairman of the Internet Committee and Chairman of the Special Committee for the Annual Communication.
I am Don Paul Payton. I am a director for the Masonic Grand Lodge Library Museum and a current district instructor for Masonic District number 65.
And the sitting most illustrious Grand Master of the Grand Council Royal and Select Masters of Texas.
For another couple weeks.
Right?
Hanging in there, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right, Billy.
Yeah.
What we got today? What are we going to talk about?
Well, and usually we have the discussion question at this time, but I think we have a lot of content to go over. So we're going to go ahead and forego that. And today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the resolutions that are being proposed for the annual communication for the Grand Lodge coming up, as well as the Grand Master's recommendations. Craig Enderli is going to be here also to share some information about the hybrid communication, how that will work, answer or impart some information that the brethren may want to know about, how that's going to function, how voting is going to work. And then really that's going to it, is to discuss what the annual communication is going to look like and what's going to be brought up before it.
Cool. All right, so shall we launch straight into the resolutions?
Absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about resolution number one. Resolution number one is a massive wall of text, but Billy, if I'm reading this right, basically it changes the due date for lodges submitting resolutions and law changes, charter petitions, that kind of thing, right?
So if I'm reading it correctly, it looks like it actually imposes a due date because I don't think there was one before. I think the committee could deliberate up until the moment of Grand Lodge. And this says, nope, November 15th, it has to be decided and sent out to all the different lodges, what their recommendation is going to be.
It actually also includes a provision that previously revises an exemption that the committees had because it was enforced according to this. Let me see through that it had to be reported by July 15th, but there was a specific provision that exempted those committee reports. This revokes that prohibition or that provision and actually imposes it like you were talking about. So that's an interesting addition.
So this resolution would be hard to, it'd be impossible because as we know, jurisprudence, purposes, and policies, and those two committees right there meet, and most of the Grand Lodge committees meet during Grand Lodge. And if something is amended and so forth, they go back there and meet and present it and speak on behalf of the committee. But if you pass this, most of those committees meet right before Grand Lodge.
Mm-hmm.
So basically any changes that they made would have to be re-released as like an amendment or something, right?
That's correct. And sent out in the same book, according to that resolution.
Right.
because it has to be sent out to the lodge secretaries. So is this resolution kind of a bust in general, or is there a way that it can be amended to be more effective? Because as I see it, it's just kind of, you know, we don't really probably don't need it.
Well, I think
Well,
in
it
a
looks
way,
kind of like a logistical nightmare as well. I mean, I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah.
Because it would require all these committees to meet months in advance of the grand communication, and then everything that had been proposed that we're talking about right now would be subject to redistribution at some later time. And I think it would throw a lot of confusion into the system about what actually the resolutions are going to be that we're going to be voting on, because we'd have two like sets floating around at any given time.
It's impossible to do, because you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 members on jurisprudence right now.
That's a lot of cats to wrangle. Yeah. All right. So let's talk about.
I was also going to bring in that a lot of people, a lot of Masons out there may not realize in the Grand East, there are committee rooms back there that are made specifically for this purpose, right? They're there for these committees to get together and make a last minute decision based on this. And in effect, the problem I have with this personally is, if you say November 15th is the cutoff date, then anything that comes up last minute, it's like, well, now you got to wait an entire year plus some before you can bring this up again. And so I think it imposes a limitation that removes some of the flexibility of the committee system.
Well, and then also too, if say jurisprudence makes a decision based off of the information that they had prior to November 15th, and then it, in December or January or at Grand Lodge itself, they come up with more information, or they learn something that contradicts that, then we have anything that jurisprudence says, right, is part of what's legally binding for us. So we would, to what you said, we'd have to wait a whole year. We would also have to wait a whole year and be legally bound to something that has been found incorrect, which that has a lot of negative implications.
The other problem here is that it says all portions of committee reports. So there are portions of committee reports that change law that are not distributed. You can obtain a copy, like fraternal relations, but that's a quite lengthy report. So now you're talking about you're going to add 30 pages to a booklet. And by the way, now they have a due date. They have to turn that in by November the 15th. And there's many other committees that are just like that file reports that do change laws or does affect the Grand Lodge. But it doesn't, that we vote on, but it's not, it doesn't affect a resolution. That would make that book quite lengthy.
Yeah. And as it is right now, it's already 48 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's when you go to PDF only.
I just don't see how this resolution could even happen.
So let's talk about resolution number 2. Basically changes Article 83 of the law to move the due date of District Deputy Grandmaster reports from its current date of September 15th to December 31st. What's the problem with having it? Obviously, we know the answer. But what's the problem with having that due date at September 15th?
So
you're still doing your visits.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So during that time, there are some visitations that are still happening. So I definitely agree with moving it back. It seems like it would make sense to me because some visitations haven't been done yet. However, December 31st, I think, is too late. December 1st, I think, is when a lot of material is due for the pre-printed reports. So November 30th, December 1st would be a good date, I think, because it gives enough time for it to be edited and included if any of it needs to be. But I think December 31st is too close to the actual annual communication. So I agree with the resolution. However, I disagree as to the timeline it sets.
If you'll notice also, this there's another proposal in resolution number 3 to actually change the same date. I believe it says, where is it? Last day of October.
Yeah, moving it 15 days.
Hmm.
So, because I agree with Billy, because there's no way, of course, these reports are not published shall not be published in the printed proceedings of Grand Lodge. So you, as Craig hinted on, resolution number 3 is changing. As you well know, Grand Lodge has moved their dates from, it used to be October, December. Now we're in January. So this is what the proposers feel is a suitable day time frame to get reports in and so forth, ready to go. I think I would lean on the Grand Secretary's recommendation on this report, because it would be his job to gather the information and make sure it's ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually going to be my point, that it seems like that these resolutions somewhat to take the people who are responsible for compiling this information out of the equation. And it seems like their recommendation would be wise counsel to adhere to in such circumstances.
Or why not just change the resolution, amend it to say as whenever the Grand Secretary or Grand Master needs the reports assumed by, set the date for each year. I don't know, because they're not.
Or it might. I also tend to think that it might even be advantageous, and I don't know what the reason for including a specific hard date for these things are in terms of in the legal proceedings, but it seems to me that it would be advantageous to folks like the Grand Master and the Grand Secretary to have the flexibility to say, this year we need them by this date because of these circumstances. Next year we need them by this date because of these circumstances. And that would seem to me to solve a lot of this problem, where resolution 3 is literally changing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 dates. Mm-hmm. And it seems to me that having resolutions this big that encompass that much minutia, that seems very micromanaging. And maybe there's a necessity for it that I'm not thinking about, because obviously I have not been, in any grand position, nor do I aspire to be. But it seems maximum flexibility would be advantageous for things like reports. I don't know. That's just me.
It's like how in your lodge bylaws, if you're ever amending your lodge bylaws, you don't want to put something super specific in there. You always want to opt for something like as determined by the lodge, as determined
that seems more advantageous here.
I think as determined by the Grand Master would be something more, appropriate. And the Grand Master, of course, can ask the Grand Secretary, hey, when do you want these by? Oh, he's got his law book.
Well, I was listening to Evie as I was walking out the door, but the Grand Master can put out on those reports, district deputy reports, what information he wants. Mm-hmm. See what I'm saying? So the form can be amended to whatever information they want. So why not let them pick the date they want to collect the information?
Seems like a great idea to me.
Yeah,
I'm on board.
I think that needs to be amended to whatever. I agree with Evie.
All right, and it makes sense, right? Because there's other things where essentially the content or the date are set as needed for that specific Grand Master or the Grand Officer that needs it. I mean, such as the Vanguard Award, right? I mean, a lot of that is set by the Grand Master as to what he wants to focus on for that year.
Exactly, and I think this would be a good way to abide by that also. There you go. You already fixed one issue. Let's tackle all of them while we're at it. Article 83. I'm going to read it right quick.
All right.
Unless you're already done with it.
We can take as much time as we need to.
All right. It says a report. Each district deputy Grand Master shall make a report of the state of the lodges in his district and all the official acts to the Grand Master on or before the 15th day of September in each year. Said report shall not be published in the printed proceedings of this Grand Lodge. So I see issues with it because some lodges meet quarterly. So maybe they can't get their visit until after September 15th. I get that part, but I mean, I've had the same issues with in the Grand Council with district deputy reports. You wouldn't believe how many don't even turn in a report in the first place. And according to that law, there's no if and or, what happens if you don't? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah. No. What are the consequences?
No consequences. It's just, and it just says, hey, you shall make a report. Official acts on or before the 15th day of September. I get it. I mean, I get, especially if you can't make your visits, especially this year, let's say the COVID, whatever, you could make your second visit if you didn't have one. I get it. But I think that date, I still agree with Evie. That date needs to be set by whatever's plausible and whatever at the discretion of the Grand Master.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is true. As a matter of fact, in our case, our DDGM is not able to make his second visit until December. He had COVID. And so it's like, it's through no fault of his own that he wasn't able to make it beforehand.
There you go.
I guess that tackles the resolutions 2 and 3.
Well, 3 is just what this is just and this is even moving the dates of resolutions had to be filed for from July 15th to August 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's moving a whole bunch of things back a month because Grand Lodge now takes place a month later, which in a way it makes sense. And it's not imposing any new due dates. It's just moving the ones that have been included. It's saying, let's give it an extra month.
So my question is, if we have another resolution that comes up next year to move Grand Lodge back to December, do we change all these again? Have another resolution to change all these dates?
It's a fair point. Yeah.
I mean, I think
that's why I think maximum flexibility should apply to these as well, because let's say that COVID or some other natural disaster happens or non-natural disaster happens that requires us to substantially alter dates, times, timeframes. When you have laws like this where they're written so specific that it binds people's hands to a specific time frame, it reduces flexibility in those circumstances and requires all sorts of logical pretzels and logistical pretzels to make sure that we get things done. And it just seems to me that these dates are arbitrary and they should be set by the people who are responsible for these particular articles and or the Grand Master or whomever we want to assign it. It just seems like overkill to have like 15 specific dates written in here that all need amending every single time we decide to change when our grand communication is going to be held.
I agree. If it's not broke, don't fix it.
Let's move on to resolution number 4, which is essentially the creation of an Article 338B to permit secure cloud storage of lodge minutes. DP, you seem like you may have a comment about this.
This is more you Google netters. Craig, you should have a comment on this one.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. There's, one of the big things that a lot of lodges have to worry about, especially if they're historic lodges, is loss of minutes. If your building burns down or whatever, you can lose all of your history, right? I think this is great for maintaining modern minutes, especially if you have to pass, you change secretaries. You say to the new secretary, hey, here's the password to the secure cloud storage. Here's all of my minutes that I took, and here's where you put your minutes too. It's great for your current minutes. It's great for storing digitized versions of your old minutes. And let's be real here, there's very little information that I know that in most jurisdictions, the minutes are sacrosanct and super important to keep private. But realistically speaking, if a hacker busted into your secure cloud storage and found a bunch of Masonic minutes, it's like, well, okay, he knows that we had meetings. Excellent.
You want me to read you this?
Sure.
Article 337, Minutes of a Lodge. The minutes of a lodge shall be transcribed for a permanent record in a well-bound book or in a loose leaf form included in a substantial binder with secure locking devices. They shall conform as far as practicable to the official forms prescribed and shall contain all the data set forth herein, an accurate, concise statement of all businesses transacted and all other matters transpiring at the meeting, and shall be approved at the stated meeting and signed by the worship master secretary in person at that meeting. Names of the officers filling the several offices as in said form provided shall be given, and the number of members and visitors present, and names of whom shall appear in the register as provided in Article 378. So basically, he's just saying, Billy, does 148 have a substantial binder with a locking device?
So we do actually keep them in a binder, which is kept in a locked room. Does the room itself actually count as a locking device?
We need to send that to jurisprudence committee and get a ruling.
I'm going to go with yes in the loosest sense of the term possible.
Right. It's actually in a locked room in a locked building. So, double safe there.
Double locking device.
Double secret safe.
Yeah.
Yes. What do you think, Craig?
I mean, to me, it doesn't mean anything for me for us to keep them, on a secure cloud somewhere. Our originals have to be maintained. I mean, I'm an archivist, although I love the computer. Obviously, otherwise I wouldn't be the internet chairman. But I would never, replace our original minutes. I mean, we just had our sesquicentennial, and I went through the process of scanning all of ours because, Gabe, what you mentioned, I'm scared of that 2-story building catching fire, and we wouldn't have any copies of it. It'd be all gone. But now we do. But right now it's there's a couple of people who have them on a encrypted thumb drive. It's the best we can do right now. So,
well, the interesting thing about this resolution that I think might shed some light on this, or maybe have us all view it a little bit differently, is specifically the resolution stipulates that the minutes of the lodge may be transmitted, so it doesn't require any lodge to maintain this. So it's completely at the option of the lodge. And then it seems to be a provision that allows for the secretary of the lodge to transmit in an electronic format to the members of the lodge for review the minutes. It's not stipulating or suggesting that this be the method of maintaining the minutes for historicity or any other activity. That they would still have to maintain a paper copy. It would still have to be in that locked binder, secret, safe location thing. But this just gives the ability, rather than printing out copies or the rigmarole of letting members review minutes, it just gives them the opportunity to say, hey, Mr. Master Mason of our lodge, here is a one-time use password that will enable you to view our minutes. You can view them at your discretion, and then that password goes away, and everything is as it should be.
Well, unless somebody, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Finish it up.
Unless I'm missing something, to my knowledge, there's nothing that prevents this lodge from doing this right now. I know of no law that stops them. I don't know why they need a law in order to do it, but
well, I know that there's been some. All of this isn't like floating around in my head all at the same time, but it seems to me that there has been some questions about whether or not minutes can be utilized in an electronic format and distributed to members in some way. Am I misremembering that?
Hold on now.
DP's getting
Open-
good use out of those glasses
Open
tonight.
your hymn book up to Article Article 338. Inspection of minutes by whom? The minutes of the lodge or the private records of the lodge, and no copy of same or any part thereof shall be made or used for any other Masonic purposes. They shall be securely kept and preserved by the secretary and shall be open for inspection at reasonable times by the officers and other members of the lodge, or by such other Masons as have an appropriate reason therefor, but not under any circumstances by those who are not Masons.
So here's a problem with that, though. When you think about it, when you transition to a new treasurer and you work with the bank, most banks require that you actually provide them with a copy of the minutes designating that person as the new treasurer. So,
And as it stands, that is a violation of Masonic law, which is kind of crazy, you know?
Yeah, I'm treasurer, and we've experienced that before, but we just tell them we can't give you a copy of our minutes. Here's a copy of our agenda. So the secretary types up an agenda. Has nothing to do with the minutes. It's basically the last page of the bylaws that does order of business.
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, I think when we recently elected a new treasurer, and we had something very similar happen, and what we ended up providing was, like, we called it a pseudo minutes, kind of. We basically provided them with a sheet that said, hey, we met on this date and we conducted ordinary business, and as part of this meeting we elected Brother Tyler Gregg to be treasurer. And it was something that, like you said, Craig, it was something that our secretary typed up that was not actually minuted. It was just kind of something to hand the bank,
Sure. To open an account.
Yeah, and then for 338, that says, you can't distribute the minutes or anything like that. There was some ambiguity. This was something that we had covered in kind of a workshop, the Briscoe workshop, some years back, and we said, well, hey, is this reads kind of ambiguously, like, is it legal to distribute written minutes? How do you define, because there's a phrase in there that says cause to be read, I think was the phrasing. How do we define reading the minutes? Like, what is is it reading out loud, right? That's not defined. And the ultimate answer that we got, it depends on the opinion of the Grand Lodge and how that gets ruled. And the answer, so my question was then, how does the Grand Lodge interpret it? And my proposal for written minutes being passed around was kind of shot down at that time by the Grand Officer I was talking to.
well, and there has been resolutions in the past that have brought up the idea of handing out a paper copy, so that way, because there are other jurisdictions that permit the minutes to be distributed as brothers are walking in the door. They're in a pile by the Tyler's station or Tyler's place, and you can just grab it, read through it, and then when they open up the lodge, they say, do whether any brethren have anything they want to add or delete to the records, to the lodge minutes as they were distributed. And then they don't even read the minutes. They're like, well, they've been handed out, and if you wanted to see what was in it, you would have had a copy, and if you don't have anything to add, then we're just going to move on.
I know of jurisdictions where there are lodges that just email a copy of the minutes to the members, and they say, during the meeting, did anybody that got the minutes emailed to them have any comments or corrections? No? Okay, cool. Zoop.
Right. So I guess the question here then is, when I read through it, I thought it was, for archival purposes, but, with what Evie said, it sounds like it's actually kind of a way around that to distribute it electronically. So that way it's like, well, this way we don't have to read the minutes. We could say, shortcut through it, which
And it seems to me that like the same thing could happen whereby, because it says here that the secretary would provide a one-time password that allows the brothers access to the minutes in that electronic location. So it would very easy. I could envision a world where somebody walks in, the secretary has the password for the day written up on the wall or something on his desk,
Next to the
and you
candidate
just pull it
flag.
up. And then all you have to do is read through it, and there's no need to read the minutes because they've been reviewed by the lodge, and all you have to do is ask if there are any amendments or changes. So it seems to me that it is trying to get around the whole like minutes destroying people's wanting to attend meetings kind of issue. And anything that gets the minutes out of meetings, except in dire need to be reviewed, I think is a good thing.
Yeah.
So
I'm
that's
with
my
you on
opinion.
that.
Well, I think the key really isn't find a way to circumvent the reading of the minutes. It's train your secretary to be very brief and punctual with the minutes.
Yeah, we've all experienced thorough secretaries before. Well, let's talk about resolution number 5. It deletes articles 629, 631, 632, 638, and 639, and then it amends Article 630. The gist of this is, right now, guys who have been suspended or expelled, if they petition for reinstatement, that's something that's handled at the local lodge level. And the justification, what this resolution seeks to do is eliminate all the language regarding how a lodge reinstates a guy or how they handle the reinstatement, and then just says, hey, the guy has to petition to the Grand Secretary of the Grand Lodge of Texas instead of the lodge. Justification there is that Grand Lodge was the suspending or expelling authority.
I agree with this resolution 100%.
What is the benefit here?
Well, you just said it. The lodge, whereas the lodges, if they so desire, can now immediately reinstate a suspended or expelled Mason without notification to the Grand Lodge of Texas at any time after the terms of suspension or expulsion have been resolved.
Mhm.
There you go.
Well, so
Any suspended or expelled Mason, except those suspended for non-payment of dues, I mean, minute little things, must file a written petition. I mean, it makes sense.
Well, so why does it make sense to make that go through the Grand Lodge as opposed to the local lodge? Because
I can absolutely envision a world where the Grand Lodge suspends someone, and then the local lodge disagrees with that and says, "Oh, yeah, this guy's coming back in." And not only are we going to vote him back in, we're not even going to tell the person who suspended them in the first place that we're letting them back into Freemasonry.
Well, but
It does happen.
But the way that it's legally structured is, and you'll note here, the way that it's legally structured and explained in this resolution is, they can immediately reinstate a suspended or expelled Mason at any time after the terms of suspension or expulsion have been resolved. So he still has to serve his suspension or serve his expulsion, right?
Right, but
So therefore, there's no reason to just say, "Oh, you can't do the." It's not like they're circumventing Grand Lodge's will. If he's served, if the term of his suspension has been resolved, then he's served his time, right?
Go ahead, Billy.
well, so the problem here, right, is the brother had to have done something to have been suspended, right? And someone was upset enough about it that they filed charges. Those charges went through a formal process that, includes the Grand Lodge, not only the Grand Master, it goes all the way up to the Grand Master. It goes through a trial. It's a very lengthy process. And unless the person is suspended indefinitely, at the end of it, this gives the lodge the ability to say, we think it was a bit unfair, so let's let the guy back in.
Oh, hell, Earl was a good guy. Come on.
Well, but that makes sense though, right? If the Grand Lodge, or sorry, not the Grand Lodge, if the trial jury or the trial master during the Masonic trial says this guy is suspended for a period of 5 years, and he goes and he's suspended for 5 years, why shouldn't the lodge have the power to reinstate him? Because functionally, he's just applying for reinstatement, right? If he's no longer suspended after being after serving the term of his suspension.
I think the issue is, when those suspensions are handed out, it'd be like for a period of time of no less than 5 years. So after that period, he can petition for reinstatement. And the question really does become, what if they're still engaging in the behavior that got them suspended in the first place? And if the lodge doesn't disagree with it, but the Grand Master, who, are the Grand Lodge as a whole, is, kind of kept out of that loop. So it's they suspended him, and they have no say as to when he comes back, other than to say it must be a period of a time, at least this level. But they don't go through a similar process to evaluate the person's conduct to see if, they appropriately have modified their behavior or what have you, in a way that would make them, as good upstanding members of the craft, because again, if they went through the entire process and they were suspended for something, it was with cause.
Sure.
So,
but don't lodges determine the eligibility and desirability of candidates who are petitioning for Freemasonry, guys who have been suspended for NPD but have paid their dues again, guys who are affiliating with their lodge? The lodge determines the eligibility of all of those guys, and so in this case, and they're petitioning the lodge. So
the distinction here is that in all of those situations, the lodge is determining the eligibility, but it was in the case of someone who is expelled or suspended, the Grand Lodge determined that they were ineligible for a period of time based on their behaviors.
Correct.
So it seems to me then that it relies upon the body that determined their ineligibility to then reassess that eligibility. And this resolution puts that back in. The lodge still gets to, because ostensibly someone who wants to be reinstated from a suspension or expulsion, it says here they're going to file a written petition for reinstatement with the Grand Secretary. Ostensibly, that's going to start in the lodge. So the lodge is going to have a hand in getting that said petition to the Grand Secretary. If the lodge agrees with it, then they will, of course, forward it. If they don't, then they're going to be like, yeah, this petition didn't survive that.
Well,
am I misreading that?
There's nothing in there that says that the lodge is involved in any way. The lodge, as the amended article is written, the lodge is completely uninvolved from the process. You'll notice that the only bodies involved are the guy who had been suspended or expelled and served his time, the Grand Lodge, the Secretary, the Grand Lodge itself via the Grand Secretary, and the Grievances Appeals Committee. And that's it. The lodge has no say in this process whatsoever.
Maybe it's about fairness. Some way of making sure, because we've been talking about this opposite way of that, he's a good guy, we should get him back in, but maybe the lodge will never forgive him. Maybe this is another way of an opposite protection for fairness, that the guy served his term, but the lodge will never forgive him. So he could get reinstated by going to the Grand Secretary's office, go to the Grievances Appeal, said, I've served my time, I did what I was supposed to, I'm back. I'm ready to serve back in Masonry, and maybe his lodge will never forgive him for whatever happened, but he can move on. He can go to another lodge.
Well, but then he becomes a reinstated member of your lodge without your lodge voting on it or having any say in it, right?
But
This is
but
like
does
somebody
he? Because
being
if he's suspended, he's
Mhm.
not he's no longer a member of a lodge, so he would have to reaffiliate, wouldn't he?
That's correct. Yeah, this doesn't say that he automatically becomes a member of a lodge just because he does this. That's correct.
would he be a Mason without I guess a Mason without a lodge?
Yeah,
I
'cause
guess
That would be the implication, at least.
I
It
guess
seems to me
that's
that
what would happen, but
what does paragraph 2 say? I don't know what. I didn't get over to
paragraph 2.
article.
it says no change in the
630.
proposed. Yeah,
Right. I didn't know
DP,
if
do
the
you have it?
instructions were in there. Yeah.
Let me
Well,
look.
let's
Well,
take a look.
So Craig, you actually bring up a good point, because think about it, the whole Masonic trial process started in the lodge. So whatever his violation was, he pissed off someone in the lodge, and they filed a charge, and the lodge sent it up. So in a way, it is an issue of fairness too, right? And I guess I look at it as this is kind of like creating like a Masonic parole board, if you will, someone who can look at it outside the passions of the people who are impacted directly, or who were there when the whole trial started, and then make a fair and impartial recommendation.
Paragraph 2 has to do with somebody who pleads guilty to pedophilia or related
Yeah, I
allegations.
saw that. Yeah.
So there, yeah, it doesn't
Okay.
change anything.
So it leaves all that other stuff out then.
Yeah, trying to
I
hear.
can see a case for the concerns that Gabe brings up, that the lodge that filed the charges is left completely out of the loop of this, or
Mhm.
could be. I'm not sure that I'm reading it entirely correctly, but the other side of that is, if they've served their time, it seems to me that the body that suspended or expelled them should be the body that reinstates them.
Right.
That's
And
just
Grand Lodge doesn't suspend or expel a Mason, right? It's the trial lodge that is convened on behalf of that lodge. So the lodge, the trial lodge that is assembled is they serve on behalf of your lodge. In theory, you could run a Masonic trial using your actual worshipful master, your actual junior warden, everything, right? And find jurors among your lodge. It's just common practice to have a trial lodge put in place for the sake of fairness and neutrality. So the trial lodge acts on behalf of the lodge. So Grand Lodge doesn't, as I have it, and I'm probably wrong, they don't actually expel the Mason. It's the lodge that expels the Mason and then tells Grand Lodge, hey, this is what we did.
Well, but the Grand Master has to accept the charges for it to actually go to a process. And reading over this, the modified Article 630 would actually say that the grievances and appeals committee will actually review the case, and after appropriate investigation, in personal interviews with the suspended or expelled Mason, if requested by either party, its findings will then be forwarded to the Grand Master for final approval. So in a way, it's saying the Grand Master is the person who says, yes, this is a Masonic offense. I agree, we need to go forward with a trial for it. And this is saying that the Grand Master then for the reinstatement of that same Mason would actually be the final person to say, yes, I believe that, based on the recommendations I've been given, I believe this brother deserves to be reinstated.
And that's kind of the issue that I have with it, is that it doesn't really allow for that. Not explicitly anyway. But I'm trying to find what the status is for somebody that's reinstated, like whether he
well, in Article 29, which is one of the proposed changes that it would strip out of the law. But as it stands right now, it says that the lodge of which the accused was a member. So that means that once they're found guilty, they're no longer a member of that lodge.
Sure.
So then they would not, even if they're reinstated, they would just be reinstated as a Mason that could then go affiliate to whatever lodge that they wanted. not necessarily even the lodge that they were convicted or brought up on charges by.
Right, because it goes through the whole process where, you know, a written petition for such reinstatement or restoration signed by the petitioner must be filed with secretary and presented to the lodge, reciting facts showing that he has made for the offenses discharge terms and conditions of his sentence, including completion of probation, parole, supervised release. Said petition shall be read to the first stated meeting in the lodge. After it is filed, the worshipful master shall appoint a committee on investigation, which shall report its findings and recommendations at the subsequent stated meeting of the lodge, whereupon a ballot shall be taken upon said petition. Only members of the lodge acting may vote. In balloting on a suspended or expelled Mason for reinstatement or restoration other than non-payment of dues, 3 black balls shall reject for 1 year, 4 black balls for 2 years, so forth, so forth. So
What was the article number there?
it's right above where in your book,
Oh,
it has the line drawn through it.
okay. So,
It's Article 630.
and here,
Current.
yeah. And so here in Article 352, right? So that's Title 3, Chapter 2, Chapter 2, I think, or Chapter 3. Article 352 says it's for plural members, right? But it kind of gives you a picture of what's going on here. Reinstatement in one lodge. Effect. Any brother holding plural membership in lodges in this jurisdiction who has been suspended or expelled for any cause by one of his lodges shall, upon reinstatement therein, be automatically reinstated in his lodge or lodges, unless a protest is filed by a member of that lodge with the worshipful master. Where the suspension or expulsion is for non-payment of dues, a protest is not allowed. So, what would that? How does that work then? Because if he's reinstated by the Grand Lodge, if let's say a guy's a member of 3 lodges or whatever, he's not reinstated to any one lodge, but it seems that under the normal process, he would be reinstated to a lodge specifically. So the way that existing law handles it is he wouldn't become a floating Mason of any kind. Although this would create a bunch of floating Masons, if it's not the lodge specifically. Well, we can probably say that this will be an interesting item of contention at Grand Lodge.
Right.
It'll be interesting to hear the submitting lodge's defense of this, because I do think that the amount of information that's being cut out of Grand Lodge law by this, that's suggested by this, and the very brief and terse amount that's being put in as a governing bylaw, it seems to me, to Gabe's point, that it leaves some substantial questions out there about what are the provisions and how it relates to other parts of the how we handle things with suspended and expelled Masons.
Yeah.
Well, it will be
answering a lot.
It will be interesting to see how the Committee on Purposes and Policies and the Committee on Grievances Appeals weigh in at Grand Lodge. And that's probably going to be what's the deciding factor.
Yeah.
I agree. I'd like to hear the discussion up there on this.
So,
shall we move on to resolution number 6?
Yeah, that one's a good one.
This one's a doozy.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and this one is, well, you could tell it is a product of our times that we're currently in. It's the creation of an Article 22A to grant the Grand Master extraordinary powers to suspend or modify any laws of the Grand Lodge of Texas in time of global, national, or state emergency. I do want to call out here, though, that it says that he would have the ability to do so with the approval of the Grand Lodge trustees. So it's not just one person making an arbitrary decision. It's the Grand Master meeting with the Grand Lodge trustees and gaining a consensus before making the change.
Yeah. Well, and so let's go ahead. I'll go ahead and read the full text of it just to capture the full picture here, because it is pretty short. Article 22A, Extraordinary Powers. The Grand Master, with the approval of the Grand Lodge trustees, shall have the authority to suspend or modify any law or laws of the Grand Lodge of Texas, A, during the period of a world, national, or state emergency, or B, to conform to any lawful federal or state directive that would affect the operations of the Grand Lodge of Texas and or its constituent lodges. So, I mean, it seems like kind of a no-brainer, especially during the global pandemic of 2020. I can see why there might be some concerns. I had kind of talked about this with somebody else, and their concern was, well, this gives him a lot of power to shut stuff down. But it says here, period of world, national, or state emergency, or to conform to the law. And so it's like, well, he can't just shut stuff down. He has to actually be able to justify it and say, hey, like, I have a state order.
You got to remember, with the approval of the Grand Lodge trustees.
Yes.
So it's not just one person. So I agree with this resolution.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I mean, there were posts in Texas Freemasons when, when the state was pretty much shut down with brothers that disagreed with it and stated that the Grandmaster didn't have the authority. And I think this is a way to make sure that if there is a case of national emergency, it's not like, well, the doors are open because, there's no provision in here saying otherwise.
Yeah. I think it's a very elegant solution to fix that problem, because we did have a problem earlier in the year where Most Worshipful Underwood had to make some decisions about, hey, like, we have all of these legal requirements for, entered apprentices. They have to, do these guys have to file a petition for advancement after a year has passed? Or how do we keep a lodge legally operating if we can't legally meet every quarter? Things like that. And I think going forwards, with Most Worshipful Underwood having to make these tough decisions, this makes it a lot easier to point at and say, no, listen, I've consulted with the other officers of the Grand Lodge and we have decided this, and we are legally in the clear.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very interested to hear the opposing arguments, though, because I think that will be entertaining.
Well, the one provision that I would say that I would, if I were drafting this resolution and I were running everything in the world, I would have liked to have seen a provision in here that stipulates that that during this time, at the next grand communication, that any of these changes to the law would be reviewed by the grand communication, or put up for a vote, or in some way make the Grand Lodge voting body a part of some of these emergency decisions, so that none of them become in perpetuity decisions. While I just think that would make people a little bit reassured that nobody would be able to do anything untoward without the voting body of the Grand Lodge having a voice in that.
And I think
I'm not sure what that would look like, but
I think it covers that, because it says during the period modifying any laws of the Grand Lodge of Texas during the period of a world, national, state emergency, or to conform to the lawful federal or state directive. So, I mean, once that's over with, then it's kind of changed.
Yeah, because usually those declarations of emergencies will have like an expiration date. And in the case of Texas, our governor came and reviewed the date, and I think at one point, he pushed the date back or whatever.
Yeah, Gabe's governor. Yeah.
Well, I think that this is just me being nitpicky about how laws are written, that it doesn't specifically stipulate a declared period of world, national, or state emergency. It just says a world, national, or state emergency. And I know that that might be a distinction without a difference to most people. I think that there could be a legal end run around that specific word not being included. And that's, I think, where maybe some people's reticence to support this provision might come from, and the lack of a review process by the grand voting body.
Sure.
I'm not saying that I don't support this. I think it's a great idea. I think that the Grandmaster should have, in times of national, world, and local emergencies, to have like significant latitudes with how we do things in those times. So don't take my comments as not supporting this, because I think it's a great idea and I think it's necessary. I just think that I can see where some people might have some reticence to support it.
Well, and there is kind of a built-in safety check into this, in a sense, because most everything that the Grandmaster does is going to be reviewed by the Jurisprudence Committee and the Purposes and Policies Committee, and they issue reports during Grand Communication, basically to say, hey, was this okay? You know, did this make sense? Was it legal? That kind of thing. DP, can you kind of elaborate on what the Purposes and Policies Committee and the Jurisprudence Committee do with the decisions of the Grandmaster during the year?
They either make a recommendation that they be adopted or not.
Mm-hmm. So there's a kind of a there is a sort of safety check in there.
Sure.
Again, this was also this was also submitted to the Committee on Purposes and Policies. So looking forward to their report on this as well. Resolution number 7, if we move on, actually changes article number 316 to exempt endowed members from per capita fees. So that would reduce a lot of the per capita that goes to Grand Lodge every single year.
So I can see why constituent lodges would want this, but this is not going to fly at the Grand Lodge level at all. At all. Because the endowment it's not a lifetime membership. It doesn't get you off the hook, and it shouldn't get you off the hook. Would this alleviate the financial woes of a lot of constituent lodges? Absolutely. Because you don't owe per capita for a bunch of guys. And for some lodges, you may no longer owe per capita for any of your guys.
Right.
But I think the Purposes and Policies Committee is going to come out and slam this. Because that's Grand Lodge's money right there.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like they're just hoarding all the money. It's just sitting there. I mean, come on. This is, I don't see this one. Being adopted.
I see that it looks like it's an attempt to fix some of the problems that lodges perceive as being a part of the endowment program. But I'm going to get up on a little soapbox here, and I'm going to say that if you want to fix the endowment program, this is not the way to do it. There are a lot of other problems with the endowment program, and this is just going to exacerbate that problem. So I do not think that this is a good idea. I think that lodges need to be more proactive and more informed about what the endowment program is, and they need to fix their own endowments so that this isn't a problem. This should not be a problem if lodges were handling their endowment program properly. Well, this is a function of, in my opinion, lodges not handling their endowment program properly and then trying to seek remediation through Grand Lodge law, as opposed to fixing their endowment programs and not trying to do an end run around it. Mm-hmm. That's my soapbox, and I will step down now.
Holding oneself accountable. What a radical idea.
Right.
Well, and there is a Grandmaster's recommendation that will address and make an enormous change to the endowment program, which may help and actually may create some issues for some lodges if they don't know how to handle their investments appropriately. But if there's no other comments on this, resolution number 8 is fairly simple. It's a redistricting proposal for Masonic districts 26A and B.
Yep.
I'm not sure if there's any real discussion required over that.
Not really, although sometimes you get surprised. Remember a couple years ago where there was a redistricting, and I won't say the names of any lodges. Remember when there was that redistricting and members of multiple lodges in that district stepped up to the podium to like trash talk the other lodges? It was really something.
Oh, yeah.
Well, hold on. Yeah, I remember that, but that's a completely. All
Yeah.
these lodges have been contacted, and they all agree with this. So
Yeah, this is a good thing.
Do it. Yeah, who
Yeah.
cares? I mean,
So-
it's not our. We don't have a dog in the fight up
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Exactly. Gabriel, do you want to cover resolution number 9?
Resolution number 9. I'm just gonna throw out that I love the way this, and I won't read the whole resolution because it's really long, or at least for an audio format, it's really long. But I love the fact that this is how. This is the very first paragraph for the resolution. Whereas our Masonic forefathers frequently met in taverns, and several of these locations have entered the memory of our fraternity as places where historic events occurred, such as the Goose and Gridiron Alehouse of London, where the agreement to form a united Grand Lodge of England occurred in the early 18th century, and the Crown Alehouse, the Apple Tree Tavern, and Rummer and Graves Tavern, together being the 4 old lodges listed by the esteemed Dr. Anderson as the meeting places of the United Grand Lodge constituent lodges. And that's how it starts. I'm like, all right, we're on to something good here.
Well,
As you can tell by the mention of all of the taverns and bars and whatnot, this is the resolution that seeks to amend Grand Lodge policy regarding the presence of alcohol in constituent lodge buildings. So there's a couple of things to keep note here. And it's not, I don't want to misstate the law, but I will say what is the de facto condition. Grand Lodge law is written in such a way that most lodges don't legally have a way to serve alcohol in their buildings. Now, that's a gross misstatement, and I know that there are a couple people that will come at me with, well, technically, none of this technically nonsense. This does seek to simplify that, and it seeks to allow people to, it allows lodges to store alcohol in the buildings and to serve alcohol for dinners and whatnot. It does have a couple of caveats, right? You can't consume alcohol during a tiled meeting or for the 4 hours that precede a degree. So if you have an EA at 6 p.m., you better cut off the drinking, before lunch ends. You can't spend any money on, or you can't spend any lodge funds on alcoholic beverages. So, it basically has to be donated to the lodge. And the lodge itself doesn't serve alcoholic beverages to any person. The junior warden is required to make sure that everybody's behaving responsibly, I think here it says 1 or more lodge members appointed by the junior warden or worshipful master.
I think at 148, y'all should make a resolution that Gabe be the junior warden if this thing passes for here on out. So
Junior warden in perpetuity.
Oh gosh, that'll be great.
You'd be the most liked guy in lodge.
Oh man, you don't want that. You definitely don't want that. But yeah, and because of the way that we handle alcohol in the constitutions and regulations, there's a ton of stuff that gets added, a ton of stuff that gets struck out, and numerous things that get modified. But functionally, this creates a policy for alcohol storage, serving, and consumption within a lodge building with frankly some very strict parameters, right? So I think this is responsible way to go about the issue of alcohol consumption in lodge. I think this is going to be a really contentious resolution. What do you guys think about this one?
Let me tell you what my favorite part is. It's the very last sentence. And 28 other past masters.
Yeah. And 28 other past masters. That's a really nice signing line there. A lot of people wanted to tack their name on there.
Well, and what's interesting too is it also makes a change to the disciplinary violations. It has here that if the junior warden admonishes a brother to, for his behavior while he's drinking, that if he continues to consume an alcoholic beverage in a lodge building after being admonished by the junior warden, or in his absence, a member appointed by the junior warden or worshipful master, that it becomes a Masonic violation.
Yeah, and I think that completely makes sense, right? Because especially now that we understand that there's so much liability tied to people when they're intoxicated, it makes sense to just say, hey, there are legal ramifications if you keep drinking, so right. I think that's a very reasonable sort of thing.
And there's general liability ramifications too, and so lodges, please make sure you're caught up to date on your general liability policy.
The one concern that I think I haven't really heard anybody talk about is as it relates to this. Now, I'll put out a disclaimer. I'm rather agnostic about this resolution. I don't have particularly strong feelings one way or another. If it gets passed, great. If it doesn't, I'm okay with it too. I don't particularly have strong feelings about it. I'm just wondering if anybody is concerned or considering the possibility that this will make our brethren who perhaps have a problem with alcohol less likely to attend lodge, knowing that alcohol might be available in the building rather easily. I'm not sure that would be like a huge problem. I don't know what our ranks are in dealing with people who have problems with alcohol addictions, but that would be my one concern about this is addressing that issue or just making sure that people think about it after this is enacted. And of course, it does have the protection written in here that it's all about lodges making this decision. This is not an imposition by Grand Lodge that says all lodges have to house alcohol or have alcohol served. It is a choice that is going to be voted on by the voting members of those constituent lodges. So there is that protection already in place. And I figure that if a lodge has a brother that has issues with alcohol, they will of course raise those issues and that will be debated in the lodge. So that would just be my one item of, I don't know, concern.
Well, in a way, the way it's worded, it would be very similar to the issue we had a couple of years ago with concealed carry handguns in the lodge, in that it does leave it up to the lodge. And, I have heard some brothers who have had concerns about being a member of a lodge who have permitted concealed handguns and therefore have looked to move their membership. But it really is all about.
I love that. Just the face of agony there.
When did that resolution pass?
Was probably 2017. I want to say it was the first Grand Lodge I went to.
I haven't seen or heard of anything crazy going on with members with a gun actually going. I mean, come on.
No.
Oh, no. And no,
I'm just talking about the point now. I mean, I'll remember
right.
that debate on the Grand Lodge.
Yeah. I think in their DP, I think in their case, it's more of a philosophical agreement, or disagreement.
Right.
But yeah, well,
it's a similar setup, right? It gives the lodge the ability to decide, are we going to participate in this or not? And then it gives individual members the ability to say, am I going to continue to be a member of this lodge if they do, or, am I going to look to affiliate somewhere else?
State rights, man. State rights all the way. I agree.
Yeah.
Let the lodges decide.
Right. Yeah. And it's on the lodge to act charitably towards its members, right? Like if you have a member that is so moved by the way that the lodge has chosen to adopt it that he leaves, that's on the individual lodge for the way that they're interacting with the brother. I'm not saying we should cater to the loud minority here, right? If there's like one person who doesn't want the lodge to act in a certain way, hey, this is a democratic establishment. We vote on stuff, and that's okay. But it's also important to make sure that disagreements like that are handled charitably and mindfully, and that you don't put the one guy out in the cold because, well, sorry, buddy, majority vote.
I just think that that this happens to, I think that I would say that this is a slightly, while I like the lodge being able to decide it, and I totally support that. I just think that, I'm just going to throw it out there. Alcoholism is a problem for some people, and it's a lot of people are silent about it. They don't want to share that information with their brothers, and they don't want it to be an issue in the lodge. And I just, I would hate to lose a member of a lodge that a good brother that just doesn't feel comfortable or safe in an environment with his own predilection for alcoholism. And so I think that it just needs to be, I think that it would, this is just nothing that I'm legislating here. I just think that lodges probably need to have a conversation as this decision comes before them about, what it means to the members, and whispering wise counsel from those members who might have a problem with it. So,
well, and it'll be,
like I said, I don't care one way or another if it passes or not. I think it's actually kind of a good idea. So.
Well, and it'll be interesting to know when this provision prohibiting the use of alcohol in lodge buildings was added, right? Maybe, I know it's included with a whole bunch of other stuff. So, the date where it says it's revised may not be a proper indication of when that portion was actually added to it. But, it was a little over, a century ago. Maybe 110, 120 years ago, there was a huge prohibition movement going on for people who wanted to ban all alcohol use by everyone, everywhere in the United States. And this could be a remnant of that that was just never addressed after prohibition was repealed.
I'll tell you what, I'd like to phone a friend. Jim Rumsey would know the answer to that question.
He probably would.
Well, I also think it's worth noting too. I think it's also worth noting, though, that within the resolutions, of course, it is worth noting for anybody out there who hasn't read the resolution that this is not allowing alcoholic beverages or storage of alcoholic beverages inside an actual lodge room. So for those brothers who are coming to the meeting and they just want to come to the meeting and participate in the lodge, it also prevents alcoholic beverages from being served anywhere in the building within 4 hours of the conferral of a degree. So I think that there is very adequate protections put in place for people who are who just want to come to lodge and not be involved in any drinking of any kind. And I think that's worthwhile.
Y'all know my phone a friend. He says it came out in 1950s, originally as a Grand Master decision. And then what? Jurisprudence Committee actually spoke against it, but it's still at Grand Lodge, but it was ratified anyway. So
DP, can you ask him if he ever provided a reasoning for that decision?
Was there ever anything to help on that decision? All right, that's what we needed. Thanks, bud.
Perfect.
He doesn't recall, but that originally took place in the 50s. So from 36 to 1950s, I guess it was. We need to find.
Honky-dory.
So we need to find why don't Billy tomorrow find an old law book from 1949 and let's see. That's interesting. Good call. Who brought that up?
Prohibition?
Billy, was that your idea?
What, to call Jim?
No. When did this law
No, that was Billy's. Billy was raising the question as to when it would have been enacted and whether or not it was tied to prohibition. But it being enacted in 1950 would point to it not being tied to prohibition.
Yeah, no, and that's interesting because I would have assumed that it was an outcome of the temperance movement that happened in the late in the 1890s, 1900s, 1910s.
Well, it's also interesting that it's that the voting body voted against the recommendations of the committee, which is that I think is an interesting little tidbit. I would be interested in seeing the minutes from that grand session, because that is that's interesting.
Well, now I have a homework assignment. I'm going to look at the committee report for that year.
Billy, we're going to need a supplemental audio recording for the podcast for you to release. Okay.
All right, Craig, do you have any thoughts of this? Because you were quiet the whole discussion, so I was wondering what your thoughts are about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be a tough one. There's so many people who feel adamant in both directions. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how it comes out.
Okay.
To me, I'm always let the lodge decide. So that's the way I feel. So
good answer. Personal
doesn't mean anything to me.
Personal rights and responsibility always win.
Yeah.
Well, except for when we move to resolution number 8. I mean, not number 10.
Oh, don't let them change their name.
Yeah. Because my question is, are we moving on to that one now?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Why are they changing their name again? They just changed their name.
Oh, that's right.
They changed their name in 2019. I wasn't certain, so I went and pulled my resolution book from 2019, and sure enough, there they are. I guess they still can't decide what they want to call the lodge. Maybe just the number. Just leave it alone.
So lodge. I bet you, Craig, dollars to donuts that guys are getting tired of writing out on paperwork and in visitors logs Fort Hancock - Fort Bliss Masonic Lodge. The Taft for the listeners, resolution number 10 changes the name of Fort Hancock Fort Bliss Lodge number 1297 to Taft Diaz Lodge 1297. So this is just me spitballing, but Taft Diaz is a lot shorter to write. So yeah, I don't know.
So it is interesting though. The reasoning behind it is because President Taft, who is a Mason, and Mexican President Porfirio Diaz, well, they were both Freemasons, met to actually discuss the creation of the Elephant Butte Dam in the, I'm totally going to mess up the name of that territory.
Chamizal?
Yeah, Chamizal.
Yeah, I think it's Chamizal.
Right, and so they wanted to rename the lodge to commemorate that meeting, which happened in 1909.
I think it's a worthwhile motivation. We have a bunch of lodges, along the Texas border, this lodge is located in El Paso, but El Paso and Laredo and a bunch of other lodges down south and up, to the west have really great relations with our Mexican brethren. So you'll see joint events between Freemasons from Mexico and Freemasons from Texas in these towns all the time. And so obviously it's just a name change. There's not a whole lot to it, but I think that's all things considered, it's a wonderful expression of international solidarity between brethren. So
even though I do have to say, Brother Craig raises a good point. You just changed the name last year. What is the name you actually want to stick with?
Maybe we introduce a resolution that says you get one name change every 5 years. That's it. Yeah, not to rag on them too hard.
Yeah, but and with all kidding aside, yeah, I mean, if they want to change lodge name. Let them do it.
Yeah.
So-
Let's see here. Resolution number 11 is just a redistricting here.
Mhm.
So nothing really to talk about there. That's, whatever works for them, right?
Right.
And then here, Billy, give us a walkthrough on resolution 12.
So resolution number 12 creates article number 75 to permit the Grand Secretary to create, edit, delete Masonic forms and report all actions taken to the Jurisprudence Committee at the end of the year. And I can kind of understand the reasoning for this because we make changes to, the bylaws and constitutions, all the time. And someone has to go back in there and take a look and see, does the current form reflect those changes? And so this, I think, gives the Grand Secretary the leeway to make changes as necessary to conform with changes as they happen to the Grand Lodge of Texas laws.
Are there what would any potential disadvantages to this be? I can't think of any really. He has to have the approval of the Grand Lodge trustees. It has to be reviewed by jurisprudence. I don't see anywhere where you could have a con. Craig, DP, do either of y'all see an issue with this? DP, you're muted.
No, I don't see anything.
What number are we on? I was looking at something.
Well,
Resolution 12.
Yeah.
It's the one that lets the Grand Secretary.
Oh, change the forms if they need to be and all that.
my opinion is if as long as it's being done with the Grand Lodge trustees and it's being reported in the Grand Lodge reports. I mean, I'm not a secretary of a lodge. I don't deal with a lot of the forms that come through the Grand Lodge of Texas, so I don't see a lot of potential blowback from this. I think it's whatever he needs to do, he needs to do.
Right. And wasn't there something similar in, I think one of the Grand Chapter and Grand Council resolutions that was put forward this year was, we had that very instance where one law was changed and there was an existing law that hadn't been changed. And so then you had a slight conflict between what the two were. And it seems like this would be a way to just allow the Grand Secretary to do general housekeeping.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Resolution 13. This changes Article 163A and creates a reserve fund in the form of a trust from the per capita assessments. And that is used exclusively for building maintenance and repairs for the Grand Lodge Memorial Temple. And I have no idea who I could talk to who might be in charge of maintaining the Grand Lodge, or maybe somebody else that serves on a board that helps dictate what happens at the building. Do you guys know anybody like that?
Maybe. Actually, and on this, I was really interested to know kind of what your guys' take was on this, right? As it's proposed, it essentially adds an assessment of no less than $40 per Master Mason in a lodge. That would be up to $200, right? So if you're doing $40 a year, after 5 years, you have then paid the total of the amount that's going to this fund. You don't have to pay any more for that member, is the way I'm reading it, which would, definitely give some much needed funds for projects that the library and museum would do to maintain the building, as well as do some capital improvements to it. So my question really was, because obviously, I have a dog in the fight. Don Paul has a dog in the fight. So Evie, Craig, Gabriel, what are your thoughts on this resolution?
Good answer, Billy.
All right, I'll go first. I don't have a problem with it, but I've already had deep conversations with other brothers that it's way too much. It's way too much money. I disagree. I don't think it is, but it gets into that conversation about how much how much masonry is monetarily worth to you. And so to me, an extra $40 per person a year, it's really nothing. Do I know that there are lodges that will it'll be hard for them to do that financially? Sure. And I think it goes back to this personal and financial responsibility, because there are people that have paid their endowment and they believe that they're done. They're done financially. They don't have to contribute anymore to masonry, it, which is misleading. So they don't think they have to, if we have this increase in per capita, or this assessment, or we need money for this particular charity, they say it's outside of the scope, not necessary. They've already paid their endowment. So I argue that that's not completely not true. It was never part of the agreement, but it was only to bypass them paying dues, but it didn't relieve them of financial responsibility to masonry as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not going to get back up on my soapbox, except to say I will get. In fact, I know I'm going to get back up on my soapbox.
Hey, attaboy.
I'm going to say something controversial yet brave. Lodges need to get with the times about their dues and about how they handle per capita. That is the truth. That is the problem with Freemasonry as I see it, that we are not willing to put our money where our mouth is. We are not willing to make the capital investments in our Grand Lodge and in our Masonic library and museum that it needs. If a lodge has a problem with that per capita increase, there's a very easy resolution to that. Increase your dues.
Yep.
And in most lodges, the dues are incredibly undervalued with what they should be, accounting for inflation. And that's leaving out all of the endowments problems that there are. And there are myriad problems with the endowment structure in so many lodges.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that the Grand Lodge needs to be a little bit better in increasing its transparency and understanding and educating the lodges about how the endowment program really works and how it needs to be structured so that it benefits a lodge, which is ultimately what it was designed to do. If that endowment program ends up being a hindrance to a lodge, then we need to have some serious conversations about what that means about the need of endowments, what they were first created for, why we have them, and why we allow members to become endowed members, and what that responsibility is. So I am in favor of this emphatically. I think it doesn't go nearly as far as probably what our Grand Lodge needs. And I think that that we would all benefit from a strong and financially stable Grand Lodge facility that we all get to enjoy at least once a year as Blue Lodge members. To say nothing about having the flagship of Masonry of Texas be in Waco and be such a majestic and amazing building that is the envy of so many grand jurisdictions across our nation. So I say get with the times.
Yeah, the Grand Lodge building is an incredible structure. It's super cool to look at. I mean, architecturally, it's just one of the most interesting buildings that I get to visit on a regular basis, right? It is beautiful. It's got this, it's just a very unique sort of building. And it's very useful, right? I mean, if you think about it, the way that we conduct business on the Grand Lodge level functionally necessitates a small stadium, right? Because when you go to Grand Lodge, and it's election time, and everybody and their dog is in the room, literally. In some cases, hi Simon. It's packed, right? Usually the building is completely full, and it is, it's not the biggest building, right? But it's really big, for it's the size of a small basketball stadium or the size of a rodeo coliseum, right? Where are you going to find a facility like that without bleeding out your wallet? It's a great building to have, especially just from a functional perspective alone. So I'm very much in favor of this. However, I'm really scared that the Grand West is going to shoot this down, and because it means that lodges will owe more money to Grand Lodge, and that alone is going to make guys line up to vote against it, which is kind of bums me out, because we do have a beautiful building that is worth preserving for perpetuity. I'm not saying that buildings are intrinsically important, because our building is not Grand Lodge, but it makes the functioning of Grand Lodge really important, really a lot easier.
I would say that I think that that a building is intrinsically valuable in a very real way.
Yeah,
I think that building is it has a character, and it gives our organization something very, very unique.
Mhm.
And if we were to lose that because it falls into disarray, or the maintenance becomes a big problem, or we're not able to afford the necessary improvements to keep it modern and stable, then I think that we lose a piece of masonry when we lose it. Every time we lose one of our historic buildings to a downtown developer or to a private investor, we lose a piece of masonry, and it is irretrievable.
Yeah.
And this is a building that if we lose it, it is going to take a piece of masonry with it.
Yeah.
And I think that the Grand West, those people who are opposed to this, I respect their disagreement. I have a different view, and I think that that this is vital.
Yeah.
I won't mince words about it. I think that this is a vote about where we see masonry and the value that we place on it.
Yeah.
And if we can't make a $40 investment for each master mason in a lodge in per capita, then I worry significantly about our future.
There's a clarification here too, right? We're kind of tossing around this figure of $40 annually per master mason on its rolls, right? But it wouldn't be explicitly per capita, and y'all correct me if I'm reading this wrong, but as I have it, they are going to pay $40 annually for each master mason on its rolls as of midnight June 23, following final passage of this resolution.
You're correct.
So is this kind of like a one-off? Basically, you say, hey, you're on the hook for $200 per master mason as of this date. You can pay it as slowly as in 5 years. Mm-hmm. But you wouldn't have to pay this for new master masons after that date, right?
Well, and I would have to leave. If you look at the Article 163A, mm-hmm. As it currently says, the Grand Lodge Building Maintenance Reserve Fund, the sum of $1 per year for each member on its rolls of all the subordinate lodges shall be transferred from the Grand Lodge General Fund to the Reserve Fund held in trust and used solely and exclusively for the structural maintenance, renovation, remodeling, and repair of the Memorial Masonic Grand Lodge Building. Expenditures from the Grand Lodge Building Maintenance Reserve Fund shall be made only upon authorization of the directors of the Grand Lodge Masonic Library and Museum of Texas. Mm-hmm. So, as you said, that's per member on the rolls. including 50-year members, endowed members, everybody.
But that would apply. But so the first part of that applies every year for every member, right?
That's correct.
But then this would only apply to existing members of the lodge as of June 23. So if you raise another guy, let's say on June 26th or whatever, following passage of the resolution, he's not on the hook as I have it. You would only be responsible for that $1 for him per year, as opposed to the $40 annually for 5 years. So
that would be my read of it as well. And it seems to me that it also gives I would hate to characterize it like this, but it seems to me it also gives people who might be particularly upset about this an opportunity to demit from a lodge, and say that I'm not a member on the rolls of that lodge, and therefore I will not pay that.
Possibly, yeah.
I could see them getting around that very easily by demitting and then affiliating on June 24th.
One would hope that they don't do that.
Yeah, well, the only bad thing about that is there is a reinstatement fee for doing that. So it's 23 something, I believe, is what the fee for that is. So yeah, you'll cheat the $40, I guess.
But it'll cost you 23 and some change.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I saved a grand total of $17.
I saved $20.
You know, and so as I see it, like this is a one-time fee to the lodge of $200 per member, right? It's not gonna keep going. You know, $200 payable over 5 years per person. Like this is not. You know, and you don't get it for each guy. So this is not a long-term detriment to the lodge's finances. You know, within the 5-year window for some lodges, hey, they might have to look at making some decisions here regarding what they want to do.
Oh,
but it's not a permanent, ongoing thing.
We need to find some way to fund it for another 72 years for the repairs and maintenance and so forth. You know, and I know the board currently and in the past have been working diligently to make repairs, and restore it to what it should be. And I know we're working really, really hard at doing that right now, as fixing a lot of issues, a lot of items, several things that a lot of people don't see just to the eye, fire extinguishers, you walk by, you see them there, and items like that cost money. Security system, lights, painting, that's our home, and we need to do what we need to do to preserve it for another 72 years.
Yeah.
Billy,
as what's a rough estimate of what it would cost to install security cameras in the Grand Lodge building?
So I am actually currently waiting for the quote from our security contractor, as well as a competing quote, because we get multiple bids and choose the one that we think would give us what we're looking for at the best price. And so I'm still waiting for that. I know the lighting, though. I just received a quote, and it's not just the security lighting, but it's also fixing some of the lighting that hasn't been updated. And so we're looking at, that project's $5,000. I'm sure security is going to be, more than that, because you're looking at the installation of new cameras, pulling the cables to get to those locations. One thing I think I really want to stress here, though, and as the general manager for the building, is we all know of some Masonic lodges that, when you look at the building, it seems like you're kind of in a holding action. You're trying to delay the inevitable, right? That there's some lodges that the buildings have gotten to a point to where it doesn't matter how much money you pour into it, you're just kind of delaying the inevitable. The Grand Lodge building is not that, right? There's modernization that needs to be done. There's some updates and some repairs that need to be done, but it's something that there's absolutely no reason why this building, couldn't be our home for, another 100, 200 years if it is updated properly and done diligently, right? It's the building is, I've heard the argument before that, well, it's just a drain on money, but it's not. It is our home, and I think that everyone notices it. Everyone that I work with, that I have come in to do, contractors and vendors that come in, every single one of them tell me how much they love that building. It is a part of Waco. Even when I talk with city officials, they feel that it's a part of Waco. And again, the building itself, it's something that there's nothing seriously wrong with it, but it's something that does need attention and care in order for it to continue to be the home of Texas Masonry for another couple of generations, and beyond.
It's very much the definition of a stitch in time saves nine, right?
Absolutely.
And there's stuff, like stuff that we need to look at, like fire code compliance and ADA compliance, or, well, in Texas it's TOS compliance, but there's all these things that not only are we preventing the building from aging out, but we're also making it more accessible for the users of the building, which is the constituent members of the Grand Lodge of Texas. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, when you think about it, I don't know if you've ever been to the Scottish Rite Cathedral in Indianapolis. It is a beautiful building. It's rented all the time for different events. Like Taylor Swift did a music video there, which brought a significant amount of income and interest to the building. But because it's a beautifully kept building, I mean, they keep it modern, they keep it clean, they keep it something that is very impressive. There's no reason why we cannot have the same thing in Waco. It's something that, again, it catches attention, and we just need to make sure that
I'm sorry, Billy, go ahead.
No, it's something that catches attention and people notice it. And I think if we do a little bit of work on the presentation, there's no reason why it wouldn't be a venue that would be rented out to different people. I know that the Waco Symphony Orchestra has used it before. We've had concerts that have been held there. It is a viable venue. And I think something that with a little bit of investment, we can use it to attract more people to come in and use it.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think, Masonic functions statewide, whether I know DMLA is going to use it for Government Day, I believe. I don't see why we couldn't hold Grand Commandery in there. Why couldn't we hold any other Masonic function in there?
Right.
That's my opinion, but are we going to 14?
Yes.
Sure.
All right. So resolution number 14 is a change to Article 4, Section 8 to permit DDGMs to be selected for members of a lodge in an adjoining district for the role of DDGM. So right now, a person from that district has to be selected. And I know I've seen this in the Grand Chapter and Grand Council side, because I've been more involved with that process. That's what leads to sometimes you have someone who's selected for multiple years, is because, in some districts, there's a very small pool of knowledgeable and qualified brothers that you can pull from. So this allows the selection pool to be expanded to the neighboring adjacent lodges in order to, make sure that there's, I guess, a wider variety of brothers to select for those roles.
Yeah, I mean, if there's nobody that's qualified, and it's kind of a rough situation, right? But the reality is there may not be anyone that's really qualified to serve as a district deputy in a district. And, that's kind of an extreme example, but you might know that there are several qualified brothers, but there's somebody who's far more qualified, for example. So yeah, I think this, like Evie was saying earlier, this allows for greater flexibility. Why not? You know?
Right. I think we have some districts that only have like 2 lodges. There may be a couple that only have 1, and so
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
really going to be kind of the same person over and over again.
So I think this allows. Hey Thomas, there we go. DP has his own guest on there.
DP, you're going to have to make some noise so the camera switches to you.
Wow, there you go. How'd that work?
All right.
DP, who do you have on with you?
This is Thomas. Say hi. Say hi. He's tearing things up. No, he's a good kid. So what'd y'all decide on 14?
Relatively innocuous. Probably won't see a lot of contention at Grand Lodge. Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah. Resolution number 15 then, and this is a change to Article 75 to require redistricting plans to be submitted for districts with less than 3 lodges. And if those plans are not submitted, then it allows the Grand Lodge to step in and redistrict those districts appropriately.
Yeah, and so this kind of goes.
Go ahead,
so
Gabe.
This kind of goes exactly to what you were saying, that, hey, we have a couple districts that have like 2 lodges, it says here, 3 Masonic districts with only 1 lodge. What are you going to do there? So it makes sense.
Man, oh, no. I mean, the resolution, I get it. It makes sense.
All right, Craig, do you have anything to weigh in on that before we move on to the Grand Master's?
No, it's covered well.
All right, so Grand Master's recommendation number 1. Again, this is just a brief overview. It creates a change to Article 508 to return language that was adopted at the 175th Annual Communication, prohibiting a Texas Mason from making any negative reference or taking any negative action in regard to a petitioner's or a member's faith, creed, or race at any time. And I think it's important to note here that that language wasn't taken out. There was a later modification that removed it. And I think as a consequence, that language was removed. I don't think it was intentionally omitted.
Right. And to clarify, the entirety of Title V was rescinded and replaced. So basically, the Title V is a big section of the Texas constitutions and regulations that governs disciplinary actions. And the Grand Lodge felt that it was appropriate to rescind the entire Title V that existed at that time and replace it with a previous version. Unfortunately, what happened was that this language that made it a Masonic offense to make disparaging remarks about a petitioner or another Mason regarding to faith, race, or creed was removed. And this was not something that was intentionally done by the Grand Lodge.
In a nutshell, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if we're going to preach universal brotherhood, there's no reason why we shouldn't have this in our laws. So I don't want any of the listeners to think that it's so crazy that Texas is only adopting this in 2020. We previously had this. There was just an administrative hiccup, basically. So.
Right. Yeah. And now we're intentionally adding it back.
Yeah. And
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
So, we wouldn't want anybody to feel left out in the cold because they weren't welcome in their lodge, and this helps, entitles them to recourse if that does happen. So.
All right. Grandmaster's recommendation number 2 is interesting. It's, they're all interesting, but this one is the creation of a program called Join the Move to assist with advancing the 10,000 Texas Masons who have fail to progress in a timely manner, it requires a temporary exemption of Articles 431, 433, 434A, 435, 436, and 437. So it looks like it's a way to permit Masons who have timed out, essentially an incentive in a path for getting back on track and continuing to progress through their degrees.
Billy, how do we define timed out under the Grand Lodge of Texas?
So right now, I believe that if you're an entered apprentice or a fellow craft mason, you have 1 year to progress, or else you have to submit a petition to kind of be reinstated. So it's
Advancement.
right. Yeah, exactly, for advancement. And so this essentially just streamlines that whole process. And it's shocking actually to see that we have over 10,000 Texas Masons that have been initiated. They may have even been passed and never made it all the way through to Master Mason. It would be interesting. I think this is a way to just remove any potential roadblocks that may be keeping them, whether it be having to follow a process that then has to be voted on and a petition submitted and all that. It's something that I think it's a good effort to re-engage those Masons that maybe for whatever reason have just decided they kind of stop devoting their time or what have you to progression.
So gents, what are our thoughts on this here?
I think the biggest contention portion is going to be number 12 and 13 on the list. People are just going to crawl all over that. That just makes, especially in my area, it makes Mason's skin crawl to even talk about those two items. So I can already hear it, the complaint about not turning in the trial lectures.
So this was originally a Grandmaster's recommendation, I believe, from Wendell Miller's year. And, I haven't seen another plan or an idea come up yet. And whenever I was going to lodges then, and that was brought up. And I said, I'm in favor of it. Unless you got another idea to accomplish the same thing, what we're trying to do. We're all
100%. I'm with you. I think it's a good idea. I can already hear.
Oh yeah.
I can already hear the talk on 12 and 13. That's what's going to drive people crazy.
And it's who would have ever thought we would be able to carry guns, concealed handgun carry? Who would have thought we'd change it from 21 to 18? Whoa, that was a big deal. I mean, I've been a Mason. This will be my 20th Grand Lodge to attend. A lot of things have changed since 2000, whenever I was raised. But, as I told those guys, if you've got an idea, I'd like to hear it to accomplish the same thing. We're on the same boat trying to get to the same pier. How do we get there?
And Billy, not to give you any more assignments, but I think I think it was just after World War I that item number 13 ever came into existence. We only did one trial lecture as a requirement for turn-in.
Oh.
Prior to that, I heard someone say that, and I think it was Dr. Rumsey.
So are you telling me Moses didn't come down from the mountain with the Texas ritual?
The King James
I might be
Bible.
hung for saying this, but yes.
Now, DP, we all know that he came down with the Texas Monitor in one hand and the King James Bible in its completeness in the other hand.
Well, I'm getting out of masonry. Of course, I've had an A certificate almost 20 years also. So, I love the ritual, but I'm telling you, knowing the ritual doesn't make you a better Mason. It doesn't make you a worse Mason.
So my complaint, here is not, and so my complaint here is not waiving the trial lectures. I think the trial lectures are important, but they're not what makes you a Mason. You know, a lot of jurisdictions don't even have trial lectures to do. Some jurisdictions require you to only learn the obligation and give back the obligation. Some don't even require that, and that's okay. It's up to each grand jurisdiction to determine what's appropriate for trial work. My biggest contention for this is the same contention that I have with festivals in the York Rite system, where a candidate sits down and he watches a guy go through degrees for him, and they all get the obligation and stuff, and they get invested with the signs of each degree and whatnot. But in the reality is he's sitting in an auditorium, watch somebody else take his degrees. And Freemasonry is fundamentally a profound, transformative, initiatic experience. There's a lot that goes on beyond just the degrees, right? A huge part of Masonry is being with like-minded brothers and becoming a better man by hanging out with these other guys, right? So, you know, there's a big non-degree component of what Freemasonry accomplishes, but the degrees are still a very powerful experience, very transformative experience. And so what ends up happening is that we're going to have a bunch of guys essentially going through a festival for the symbolic degrees, right? The craft degrees. And so my biggest point of contention with this whole list is point 13, which says, or no, not point 13, point 14, which says there will be only one exemplary candidate for each degree. So you're going to have a bunch of guys sitting in an auditorium watching somebody take their fellow craft degree for them, and then take their Master Mason, the most important degree in all of Masonry. You have a bunch of guys sitting in an auditorium watching somebody else take the most important degree in Masonry for them on their behalf. And that's my biggest complaint with this, because it strips the initiatic nature of the craft degrees out and makes them into a play.
Well, so, but there are some points to that would say, I get where you're coming from, but again, it comes into personal choice, right? Because point 3 says this program will not be mandatory, and lodges will be sent a letter inquiring if the lodge wants to participate in the program, and that this program must be approved by the Grand Master and will not be conducted more often than once every 3 years. So this will be essentially every 3 years you have a festival to help some of these brothers that may not have, that either they don't have the time or there's been something else that has prevented them from progressing. And so now they're given the option to say, here you have the ability to attend a Grand Lodge sanctioned festival to help complete you through the degrees, and so yeah, I have a lot of the same reservations and complaints about the York Rite festivals, because as much as I love participating in them, sometimes you can have results that are not the best representation of what we're trying to confer in those degrees. But this is something that I think it gives an outlet to brothers that may not otherwise be able to complete it. So it still gives them the opportunity to become, Master Masons.
That is true, that it is left to the option of the lodge. One of my problems with it is that you're going to see, and I guarantee you this, you're going to see lodges that pressure candidates into going through this program.
Right.
I talked to a brother who was told he went through a one-day class in a jurisdiction that permits one-day classes and that does not make it mandatory for lodges to send guys to it. He was told by his lodge that he could not, that they weren't going to put him through the degrees, and that if he wanted to be a Mason, he was going to have to go through the one-day class that was not mandatory. And he said that he's not the only one in his jurisdiction who's had this problem. So I fully think you're going to see lodges that, you know, every 3 years they're going to farm out work to this, you know, it's not a 1-day class, but it's 2/3 of a 1-day class. You're going to see guys that get farmed out to this, or they get pressured into it by their lodges. Because I have legitimately talked to people that have. I've talked to one person who, you know, was pressured into doing it by his lodge in another jurisdiction, and he knew other people. And then everybody that I've talked to who has gone through a 1-day class says, you know, that if they had the option, they would have never done it.
I say treat it as a handgun thing. The lodge votes in favor of it, do it. If not, go on down the road.
I do tend to agree that with Gabe, that I think that this particular Grandmaster's recommendation is Freemasons treating the symptom, not the disease. The disease is something I think that Gabe is alluding to. I think the symptom is the 10,000 Masons that aren't advancing. And I think we're all in Masonry looking for what the true disease is. We're all going to have a different opinion about that, I think. I think Gabe views it as a values calculation that that lodges aren't providing. The lodges from which these candidates are not returning and not advancing in are not providing a value experience to the candidate. And so therefore they're leaving and going elsewhere, or just leaving altogether and not replacing it with anything. I think that there is a certain number of those people, like Gabe mentioned, that are not advancing because life gets in the way. They have a baby, they have twins, they have a job situation or a move or any number of circumstances that are beyond their control. I tend to agree with Gabe also that I don't think that a festival style experience is the best way to solve that problem. It doesn't increase the value. The reason that the 10,000 Masons left and didn't come back is likely not because they were required to recite words. It was likely not because they were expected to learn some grips and some how to do things like a Mason does. And to that point, I agree with DP. I don't think that that's what makes a person a good Mason or not. I think that it has something else to do with something intrinsic to the nature of Freemasonry that the person is not connected with. And I think that the real answer, in my view, if you wanted an idea of how to solve this problem, is to have members of a lodge engage those members who are not advancing, and to find out why they're not advancing. Because I think the reason that I think that this doesn't happen, let me wag my finger again, is because I don't think that lodges want to hear the answer. I think it would be an uncomfortable truth if lodges really heard what those members are not coming back for. And I think that it would force them to evaluate the kind of Masonry that they're practicing. And I think that that's an uncomfortable truth to have to face. And so they rely on Grandmaster's decisions to make these sorts of things for them, instead of addressing the real issue, which is, doctor, heal thyself.
All right.
What recommendation are we on now?
Okay.
Great. Yeah, this is a long one.
Number 3.
All right. Recommendation number 3 is a significant change to how the endowment funds are handled today. It deletes articles number 163B, 163E, and 318A, and it creates a replacement Article 318, which permits lodges to transfer their endowment contributions out of the holding fund where they currently sit in and are invested in the Grand Lodge's endowment fund. It allows lodges to take their endowments and the credits they have and transfer them back into their own general operating fund. So essentially it says you can remove and handle your own endowment investments as you see fit.
Pull up your big boy britches and it's yours. You do it. You deal with it. You invest it. It's your money. My personal opinion on it, I love it. It's the lodges. Yeah, it's the lodge's money. So, and I use Phoenix for. We had several years where, whenever the endowments first came out, they were buying endowments for everybody. That was going to be the future to save the lodge endowments. Well, that kind of stopped, but we've got over $100,000 worth of endowments sitting there, but we get $3 and something percent, or $3 and something change this year per unit. Well, that doesn't even cover per capita per member. And the guys, the old saying, I'm endowed, I don't pay dues, it is what it is. Congratulations, thank you, and go on. You know what I'm saying? We all deal with that, but if you gave that money back to the lodges, they invested it, or throw a beer party. Well, I mean, it's I hope that's what they would do. But
I guess that depends on whether or not resolution number 9 or number 9 puts it.
Exactly. But if the lodge took that money, invested it with their other investments, like we do, say at Phoenix, we have a higher return on investment than we do through our endowment fund. I guarantee you that. Mm-hmm. My theory would be the people that have bought endowments that are part of that money that are still members of our lodge, that are still alive, I'm sorry. Part of the returns on investment for those that we invest in our lodge with our investment banker, whoever that will be, that covers the per capita that's due for those members. We make a lot more money, and it's ours. I mean, I don't think Grand Lodge ever created that fund to be, hey, we're a banking system to invest your money. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, the only part here that I think people are going to fight about is stipulations 1 and 2, where lodge members that are under 65 years of age will be required to pay not less than 20 times the lodge's current annual dues, and lodge members who are 65 and older, their endowment shall be not less than 10 times the current lodge's current annual dues. I'm fully in support of that. A lot of jurisdictions require endowments to be 20 or 10 times the annual dues. It's fairly standard practice in jurisdictions that do have endowments. And really, endowments do need to be significantly larger if we want it to be more successful. So
I think if the endowments went back to the lodges, you're going to see a mass of members withdrawing from plural memberships.
Really?
Well, think about it. If you're endowed in 7 lodges, mm-hmm. And they say, oh, hey, you owe us $100 again every year. You see what I'm saying? For 7 lodges, mm-hmm. plus your current lodge that you are active in, per se, in the area that you live in.
Well, I don't think that would really affect them, because I think existing
clause.
Existing
grandfather clause.
Yeah, there's a grandfather clause.
Where is it? Tell
me. Hold on. Or I may have misread that.
While y'all are looking that, perhaps somebody could explain to me, would it be up to the member or the lodge to take the money out of the endowment? So if, for instance, Billy is endowed at Fort Worth 148, would it be the lodge's decision to take his money out of endowment, or would it be the individual who placed the endowment, if they're still alive, that's making that decision on behalf of the lodge?
No, point 6 says,
both.
Point 6 says endowed lodges may transfer any or all income in the EMF to its general operating fund on July 1st of each year. And then point 8 says endowed memberships are not transferable with lodge memberships and remain to benefit the endowed lodge where such memberships are purchased. So it looks like
belongs to the lodge.
Yeah, the lodge would then be in control of those funds, because essentially what you're doing is you're making an investment in the lodge.
In your lodge. That's
sure.
Correct.
Overall, I think this is a really good recommendation, and I don't see a problem with it. I'm wondering, in theory, I think that a lot of people will support this because it gives lodges more control over endowments, and I see it as being more financially beneficial for the lodge. I'm sure that we'll hear some interesting opposition to it, though. Although I don't know what it would be.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Yeah.
Here's my hot take on it.
Hot take.
Hot take moment. I think that this was done brilliantly. I think that this is a brilliant Grandmaster's decision for primarily one reason. It dangles a carrot and distracts you from the stick. The stick is the restructuring of the endowment program to the 20-year and 10-year requirement of the endowment size, and it dangles the carrot of you get all this money back. And I think that that's what a lot of lodges are going to be thinking about, that they're going to get a lot of money back from the endowments that they are planning on probably taking out. And it's going to make their endowment structures much more beneficial moving forward. And I think that that is a good thing on both counts. So I obviously am in support of this Grandmaster's recommendation. Not that it matters that he has my support. I mean, nobody cares about my opinion, but I'm going to put it out there into the universe anyway.
Evie, we care about your opinion.
I'm sure you do.
Yeah, no, and honestly, I think this is a great step in the right direction because the endowment program, I know that it was intended to be a financial benefit to the lodges when it was rolled out, and it was sold as a benefit to the members as well as the lodges. But I think in retrospect, it has turned out to not be quite what it was originally billed as. And so I'm all on board with giving lodges the ability to invest their own funds as they see fit. And the end result is if they make good decisions, then they'll benefit greatly from it. And if they make poor decisions, well, they at least they had
Too
the
bad,
opportunity.
so sad.
Yeah, they had the opportunity to, everyone should be allowed to have the opportunity to make mistakes, and that's how we learn. So,
What about Grandmaster's recommendation number 4?
So this is another library and museum one. So this changes article number 163.11 to increase the Grand Lodge's annual per capita donation to the library and museum for building maintenance from $1 to $9.
As with the previous one about the library and museum, I'm fully in support of it. I think the Grand West is going to fight it to hell and back.
I think that this one will probably be a little bit more palatable than the previous one because I think the difference between $1 and $9 is substantially different than $40 for 5 years. So I think that this one stands a much greater chance than the previous resolution that we talked about.
Hold on here. Y'all keep talking. I'm looking up something for you.
Part of me wonders if the previous one of the $40 gets shot down, if the voting members of Grand Lodge will feel more confident in rejecting a second proposition of sorts. If they shoot down that resolution, will they perhaps feel more emboldened to shoot down this recommendation? I'm not saying that they will. It's kind of hard to get a feel for the psychology of the Grand West, as it were, but it may be more palatable, but they may also feel more emboldened to reject this.
Let me read something for you. This is out of 2016 Grand Lodge Texas Proceedings. The report of the Masonic Grand Lodge Library and Museum was given by a past Grand Master, Reese L. Harrison Jr., who at the time was a director on the Masonic Grand Lodge Library and Museum. And in the very beginning of his report, it says, first of all, I want to bring to your attention who we are. In order that we can do that, I need to actually read something out of the proceedings and the proceedings of the Grand Lodge of 1981. It is said that the voters of the Grand Lodge voted to create the building corporation known as the Masonic Grand Lodge Library and Museum of Texas, and at the same time, all the assets that were owned by the Grand Lodge in regard to the real property, dirt, whether it was the Masonic Oak in Brazoria County or this building in McClellan County, or come other property that was owned by the Grand Lodge, whether it be transferred to the new, would be transferred to the new 1981 Masonic Grand Lodge Library Museum of Texas. Here's where it gets good. The following year, it was realized by the Grand Lodge of Texas that it included valuable assets, but no cash. So it was voted in 1982 that $1 of the per capita tax be transferred over to the Masonic Library Museum. That's what this recommendation is affecting. So according to our proceedings, the membership of the Grand Lodge at that time was 212,000 members. Now you have to subtract the 50-year members and the members who lived at the home of H. Masons, which was and is operated by the Grand Lodge Chapter of Texas, to find out who actually pays per capita. So we didn't receive in 1982 $212,436. We received some amount of less than that, but let's just say it was 200,000. Today, as our annual returns that you filed effective June 24th, 2016, the Grand Secretary report shows that we have a membership of 82,932. I hope you catch the significance of the difference and you subtract from the 15,094 50-year members. So that is about 67 Masons in Texas that pay to the library museum versus the 200,000 we used to receive. Everybody clear on that? So the next sentence is pretty good. It says, okay, so then we have a significant drop in income because of our decline in membership and our increase in 50-year members. We have members that in 1959, when it became a Mason, we didn't have 60, 70, 80-year members. We have a lot. It goes on. It's a great report. Reese always does a great job in any report or that he gives, or pre-written or pre-printed, especially from 2015, 16, 17, 18, and 19, in reference to the Masonic Grand Lodge Library Museum. So you see the difference of where the money is. That's a big drop. And we all know expenses on a building go up. It doesn't go down. Insurance goes up. Everything goes up. And we're still operating on $1 per member from 1982.
And I think and the thing that's a little bit of a bummer is that I think anyone that's gone to Grand Lodge enough times was present there for at least one time where a raise of per capita was rejected, right? So that's what makes me very nervous about it, because a per capita increase is not going to be popular. And even though, the five of us are sitting here making all very good points in favor of it, and it is just basic math that you have to have enough funds to maintain your building, I still worry that that is not going to be adopted, because people are just going to want to reject per capita increases.
I think it's going to depend a great deal on the people who get up and talk about this and make these very valid points that we're all making here, because I don't believe that any rational, thoughtful Freemason out in Texas would not see the logic and the validity of these very compelling reasons why these financial investments need to be reevaluated. That we've talked about over the last, there's the Grandmaster's resolution prior to this, number 3, the one dealing with the $40 expenditure in per capita for 5 years. These are all very valid arguments, and I think that if people just read these these documents here, they're going to see just the dollar signs associated with it. It's going to take the humanization and the emotional reason behind all this stuff to compel people to see past the dollar signs involved in this and to understand the reasoning behind it, that it's not just a money grab, that it is actually going to sustain Freemasonry in Texas for the foreseeable future if we make these wise financial investments now, which are much smaller than they would be if we postpone them 5 or 10 years. So I just hope that people get up and speak very passionately about this, as we have here.
Yep. I guess, do we have anything else to say on this one? I think we, we
have sufficiently bludgeoned that horse.
Yeah.
I like it. I just like it because it puts money in each year coming in. It just, in some way, somehow, just kind of like our per capita. I remember when it was it 1450, 1475, and then it jumped up to 2750. We just didn't keep up with the times. I get it. Look at your lodge dues. If you had, going back to the endowed members, if you have 100 members, 90 of them are endowed. So you got 10 guys paying all the utilities and expenses for a year of the lodge. And then come to find out, like this year, you got to pay more money to cover the per capita for your endowed members. Think of how much money you would have as a lodge to do things if all 90, say even just 10 of those members were endowed. Your dues wouldn't have to be $375 to cover the funds that were needed from the other 90 guys. We need some money.
That's the long and short of it, folks. We need the cash.
We need the cash. That's it.
All right. Well, so actually, Brother Craig, you've been very patient in engaging with us in the conversation. I wanted to, we had talked about giving you the opportunity, though, to talk about the hybrid communication. This is the first time that Grand Lodge is going to be able to be attended both in person and remotely. And so I was wondering if you had anything you wanted to share with the, any members that may be listening about this hybrid communication.
Yeah, sure. We did, we're almost done with the control room. We finished all the physical improvements to the control room. Now it's just a matter of the technical build out. If I would encourage everyone to please go pre-register, especially you've never seen, if you're a Master Mason, you've never seen Grand Lodge before. This is a great opportunity for you to see what it's like. You can pop in and out. To do so, just go to the member portal, and you can register right there. We have on the member portal, there's a post that was made a couple of days ago that talks about pre-registration. It's open, and that there's a link on there for grandlodgeoftexas.org /2021 registration. That is a training page, and a page where we're talking about when we're going to have live session trainings and videos, and there's instructions on how we're going to do certain things. And so there's a test ballot, and that's probably the most interesting portion that everyone always calls me about, is how is the voting going to work? And so if you are allowed a vote at Grand Lodge, Credentials will issue you a voter ID and key in which you'll be able to remotely vote. And so that voting system will be the same in both on site or at home. What'll happen is during the once the Grandmaster opens a ballot, there will be a URL that's a secure URL. It'll require you to have your voter ID and voter key to be entered, and then you'll be able to go in and make your selection. That'll be for voting on resolutions and also for the election of officers. And so go check out that on that training page. Go check out, there's 2 test ballots that are out there. One's for voting on make-believe resolution and one for voting on one for electing an officer. And so the equipment that's required to vote, most folks who have an iPhone, you'll be good to go. You don't have to do anything. You'll be able to scan a QR code, which will be given to you in your packet when you're on site. And each time the ballot's open, and it'll redirect you to this secure link, secure URL, which you'll enter your username, password, and vote. Likewise, if you're at home, you could use the same voting QR. It's a dynamic QR code, so it's just one QR code. We will make it go to the new URL each time. At home, you can use the same link. Also, there's another way. We have it set up based upon your email address. So you can wait for you to receive the email, and you'll be able to cast your ballot there as well. As far as lodge representatives, just like the clicker system, you had to vote twice, once with the lodge clicker, once with your personal past master clicker. You'll have to do the same. You'll do the same thing. So you'll scan the QR code, log in as you with your credentials, and then cast your ballot, and then you'll scan the QR code again. And this time you'll log in as the lodge representative, and you will cast your ballot as the lodge. Immediately, if you don't think of the reason why we have to do that, is because there are many lodges out there that tell you and give you instructions that this is how you have to vote. And so your personal feelings may differ from what you've been told to do as a lodge representative. So those need to stay separated. Also, there is we are working on currently a check-in and check-out system. Most people didn't observe that rule in the past. However, you're going to have to do that with the way we're voting now, which is if you're worshipful master and you're voting, and for whatever reason you now have to leave, what you were supposed to do at Grand Lodge is go to the credentials desk and tell them, I'm leaving. This is my senior warden. Please issue him a clicker. Most of the time, people just passed off the clicker and said, here, you got it from here. There'll be a system where you'll have to go in and check it in and check it back out, because it is a username and password. Of course, I'm sure you're already thinking there's a simple way around that. I'll just text them my username and password. That's illegal. You can't do that. But if you do it and don't get caught, good luck. Our first live session for our first live streaming training session, Monday, November the 30th at 6 p.m. So you'll just go to that training page right before the webinar begins. There'll be a link on there. You can just click on the link, follow the instructions.
All right. So actually, it was a really cool process. I was there when we did the tech test, and it was interesting because I didn't even realize that it was going on. And I received a notice on my phone that said, resolution X, please vote now. And so while I was actually talking to someone else, I was able to pull up the vote and look at the ballot, see what the options were, cast my vote. And it was a process that took all of about 10 seconds.
Craig, I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
If I wanted to mail in a ballot and go vote in person, what's the address I need to mail my ballot into?
We do not accept mail-in ballots. When I say we, you would need to contact the Grand Secretary's office and the Credentials Committee to ask what you do with mail-in ballots.
Okay. Well, that answers my question then.
That's what this box is right here. I have a box full of mail-in ballots. They're ready to go.
Super
You just have
secure.
to see how that election turns out.
Super secure.
That is funny. That's good. I like that.
Craig, what physical alteration, or I guess not alterations, but I guess what changes in the physical setup of the Grand Lodge auditorium did y'all have to do in order to make live streaming more of a functional process?
Well, the biggest thing is there was no room in the sound room um, for us to put additional media in there to handle video streaming. So we got with the credentials committee, and credentials was okay with losing their room and absorbing it into a larger control room, because actually as part of this control room, credentials actually has a desk in the control room, because uh, someone has to um, be over the voting portion, and to make sure there's some oversight in that regards, and that right fit as far as the committee is concerned, and the internet committee is the special committee is concerned, and the internet committee is concerned. That right oversight is the credentials committee, and so they will. So yeah, they're losing they were losing an office, which appears to have been a closet for the last 3 years. But they are getting a desk in the control room. So some of the other things we did is we have some PTZ cameras that are being installed. We've also had some slight modifications to some other existing equipment, but they're all minor. Probably no one will even really notice what they are. So it's some electrical items taken care of, et cetera.
So, Craig, question: Have y'all seen quite a few people? Since this is kind of the first time ever, do y'all have quite a few people registered for online?
At this point, we have just under 200 people have registered for virtual only. We believe that we only have that many right now because there is no rush. We had I think we had 800 people register in a 5-hour period for the on-site portion, and I think that's a gold rush. People were afraid they weren't going to get a ticket, they weren't going to be able to sit there, and so they were just trying to make sure that they got a spot to be in person, because we don't normally track when registration comes in, but we looked at some historical billing items, and we've never received that amount of money in the first month of registration since we've been taking credit cards. So that'll tell you right there. We just had this mad rush of people wanting. Right now, I think the focus has been making sure they got their on-site seat. But I believe that it has been steady, that we've been in the 10 to 15% range of virtual registers since day one. So it wasn't like there was none. I think it's just been maintaining that percentage. So I think it'll increase as time goes on.
Well, and I have heard a couple of people tell me that they actually initially registered for the on-site communication, and they've been thinking about switching it to online.
Is that a process to do that, or is that even an option?
It is an option in the registration. You are able to do that up until you can do that on your own up until right now, December the 15th. We are, but when I say up to December 15th, you can choose either or up until December the 15th. So right now, if you're registered for virtual and you want to change it to on-site, you can go in there and you can change it. after December the 15th, it will only allow you to switch to virtual. You will no longer be able to go back to on-site. So now the downfall, if you do that, is that if you register before December the 15th, you will be automatically registered for the virtual event, which means you won't have to go in there and enter your name and your email address and phone number and all that for the virtual portion. We will automatically do that for you. But after December the 15th, you will have to go through that process by yourself. All we'll do is provide you with a link telling you that you need to go in there prior to the session and go register yourself. And just to make a clear definition, sometimes we don't point this out, but this is pre-registration. So this is like pre-registration is like buying your airplane ticket, and registration is you checking in. And so you can check in virtual, just like at the airport. You can register virtual. And if you're in person, instead of going to the kiosk, right, you go collect your packet. That's registering. So,
Craig, what do you think the biggest challenge for the event team is going to be during this hybrid communication?
Convincing people that this won't, that this is not going further. I think that's the biggest problem. I think that there is a bit of stigma that there is something maybe subversive, or that there is a sense of that maybe even folks on the committee feel that this is the way we need to do this, that we don't need a Grand Lodge memorial, that we don't need to meet together. We can just do it virtually like this. And I don't think, I haven't asked every single person on the committee, but I can say with high confidence, there's not a single person on the special committee that believes that. Every time, if you were to give me the option, Craig, what do you want to do? Do you want to do this? You want to go virtually, or do you want to go in person? I guarantee you every time I'll pick in person, because there are things with Grand Lodge. I love hearing the resolutions and going through all that. But if you really have been going for a long time, like I have, that's not why you go. You don't go for any of that. That's great. It's part of the business. It's a necessary evil, just like stated meetings are. They're necessary to conduct business, but they're not everything to me. There's much more to it. So I think that I think people there's a stigma where people are afraid that may be a goal of this, and I can tell you that not with this committee. This committee, that is not our goal. Our goal is to give the 5 past masters of my lodge that I haven't seen since this began, because they're afraid that if they catch it, it would be fatal for their significant other. So they don't attend lodge, and previously they did regimentally, and went to Grand Lodge regimentally, always went, and now they can't go. So this gives them the opportunity to be able to vote, and participate with the session. So if they feel strongly about one of these resolutions, they don't have to put themselves in danger in order to stand up and say that they don't think that this resolution's right. They can do it from their home, and they can. It gives them that personal choice, which I know we've said over and over and over. It gives them that option to make the decision. You want to come in person, come. If you can't, here you go. And I think the other great part of this is the engagement that we're allowing here. One of the things that got me going was my father-in-law very much insisted before I was in the lineup. He said, "You need to go. Just go." He was a past master, and he just said, "You just need to go." And um, and so it caught on. And so I think this is another way to get Masons engaged in what goes on. And it could also break another stigma, which always bothers me, is when they say, somebody says, "Oh, well, Grand Lodge is doing this and Grand Lodge is doing that," and they forget it's us. It's us collectively.
All right, excellent. So, and I think that is an important distinction. This is kind of an unprecedented event, and so we've come up with the unique, unprecedented solution. But I think the intent is when things return back to normal, we return back to normal as well.
And regardless of how, regardless of how soon we're able to return to normal, I'm really excited to see how this process works, just because it is a very creative solution to the problem.
And
Right.
it's an asset to the building as well, because now this infrastructure is in. It can afford for other opportunities. There's sometimes where people haven't seen, maybe they've never seen the installation of a Grand Master before, and now not only do they get to see it this year, but they get to see his face instead of his back the whole time.
Fantastic. Brother Craig, thank you so much. We're going to wrap up with a very brief quote of the week, which is "Well done is better than well said" by Brother Benjamin Franklin. And Gabriel, do you want to go through the contact info and then we'll sign off?
If you want to learn more about the lodge or more about the podcast, you can find us at www.fortworth148.org. You can email us at info148@fortworth148.org. We are at Fort Worth Lodge 148 on Facebook. And stay posted. We're plans for MasonicCon 2021 are very tentative. We know that we definitely want to have MasonicCon 2022, but with the pandemic looming, we're still trying to figure out what 2021 is going to look like. So stay posted on that. We'll let y'all know.
All right, excellent. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up. And this is Billy Hamilton signing off.
This is Gabe Yagish signing off.
This is Evie Kirkendall signing off.
This is Craig Enderli signing off.
And this is Don Paul Payton signing off.